Ooh, and there we are.
You can set it up however you like.
However we like. There we are.
Yeah.
Sounding good.
Yeah.
I'll have to get out of radio Logan and into just normal Logan.
Yeah. Is that hard to do?
Sometimes. Like there's radio Logan, which is just put on Logan. And then there's Logan that's just like chatting in the living room Logan.
The 5 Elements of Letting Go. The podcast. Discussing mental health openly and freely. And learning tools and techniques to find peace. Well, welcome everyone to the 5 Elements of Letting Go. I'm Dr. Jared McCollum. My guest today is Logan Coutts.
Good evening. It feels later than it is because of the time or the darkness, I suppose.
Dark so fast out there now. Now, most of you listening probably have heard Logan's voice before on the radio at Eagle 100.9.
Yeah.
And you've been at the Eagle for how long now?
I think I'm coming up to like 6 years.
Wow.
Yeah, I started, if I had fallen into it any harder, I would have broken something, is what I like to say. Because I was at school, or I was doing school at SAIT, and we were given like these other, the instructors were really good at connecting people and connected me with the Dogs baseball, where I started doing music. Through there, met Jamie Hall, who was on here, a beautiful human being. And he said, hey, do you want a job? And so I started that, doing like 2 days a month, and slowly worked my way up until now I'm doing morning show.
Oh, that's awesome.
So it's been a wild ride, but I'm loving it.
And we've known each other for
A while.
number of years.
Yeah.
And we've been in how many plays together now?
Several.
Yeah.
My favorite, and the one that always comes to mind, is Arsenic and Old Lace. I will never forget that. And I'll never forget what he put in the pages.
Well, let me explain. So there's a tradition in theater. I don't know if it's every theater,
It's
but
this one for
definitely
sure.
in Sydney, is to, especially the last show, either some people change up their line a little, or they do something just to spark a reaction in the other actor.
To try and throw him off.
Try to throw them off and do something silly and fun. And so there's this one scene in Arsenic and Old Lace where I am...
Teddy Roosevelt.
I believe I'm Teddy
Yeah,
Roosevelt.
you believe you're ready.
I'm a little imbalanced, and I believe I'm Teddy Roosevelt. And my aunts, who basically raised me, like to invite, they're running a boarding house, and they poison depressed old men, and I bury them in the basement. And
It's a happy show. It's a happy show.
It's a comedy, and it's hilarious. But you are the plastic surgeon to my other brother, who's psychotic and really crazy, who actually harms people. And I believe, because I believe I'm Teddy Roosevelt, I believe you're a general, right? Yeah. And so there's this one scene where every time I bring out this book and I say, see, right there, you and I,
Dig in the Panama Canal or something like that.
At the Panama Canal. And so I decided to play a little joke on you. And so I pasted in the book where the picture usually is of a naked woman.
It threw me off because there's like my mom in the second row, and I open it up and I'm like, what are my lines?
I'm not supposed to look at this. Mom's in the room.
But yeah, so we've been in lots of shows, and that one will always forever be in my memories because that was a good one. I really like that one.
That was a good one. That's the same night where I got Ed really good too.
What did you do?
Well, because every week when Ed would show up, because he's the doctor taking me to the insane asylum. Yeah. And I would do something different to him every night. And I'd measure him up, or, I actually brought out tape and measured him out one time. But the last night I knew I had to do something really severe. And so when he said he was going to take me away, I look at him, and then I go up, and I grab his genitals in my hand.
Not counselor hands.
And then I say, turn and cough. Like I'm doing a test for his wellness to see how healthy he was.
His voice went up a couple octaves.
And everyone lost it. The crowd lost it. Ed lost it. Everyone on stage. And Jamie saved it.
Yeah.
Because Jamie was like, well, that's a way to, get a gnome or something like that. And then it was enough to kind of, settle it down and get him back on. But later on backstage, where him and I were backstage before we came out one more time, he looked at me and he goes, "You sick motherfucker."
And thus began a new relationship with Ed.
Anyone who knows Ed knows he took that and just thought it was hilarious and was not offended at all. Yes, I did not ask for his consent, and I surprised him with it, but him and I have done some silly things over the years, and I think he understood.
And now you don't have far to walk to the RPAC anymore.
Yeah, exactly. It's just right across the street now. It's awesome.
Congrats on the new building, by the way.
Thank you.
It's stunning.
Yeah, it was. The owners are very kind in allowing us to move our clinic in here, and we're really enjoying it.
And from what I hear, very haunted.
I've heard stories too, but
no experiences yet.
My experience when we first came into the space, I walked around every room and smudged.
Okay.
And I had a conversation. I said, I don't know who's here or how you feel about things, but this is a healing space now. So the only energy that can be put out is positive healing energy. And that's all we've seen. So
maybe he was waiting for that.
Yeah. Maybe they're all just looking for something to do and how they can help.
Hey, I love it.
I've had one or two patients say they can see the ghosts, but I don't know how I feel about that. But
nothing yet. On
everyone has their thing, and that's I guess they have an ability that I do not have.
Well, I'm a firm believer in ghosts.
Are you?
So I'm excited to be in this building because my mom runs the ghost tours, and this was always a stop.
Oh, that's your mom?
Yeah. So she would always talk about it. So I'm excited. Hopefully, we'll see something in the corners.
Well, what I'll do is when we are done, I'll take you up to the third and fourth floors.
Yeah.
Where the ghosts sleep.
Deal. I'm all about it.
Okay. So again, you said you've listened to a couple of these. One thing I like to ask everyone is their opinion on where the state of mental health is in our community and in the world.
It's a heavy question.
It is.
And I hear that there's more people or more than just me, but it is my birthday. Mm-hmm. And I've had a lot of positive energy today. So it's just nice to have a really nice end to the day of a very positive energy day. Good. The state, going back to the question, the state of mental health is a tricky one. So I'm 25, so I don't have a whole lot of experience with life, I would say. But I've had a very complicated experience, like a complicated relationship with my mental health through it. So yeah, it needs to be talked about more. It needs to be normalized more. I'm wearing a shirt for a reason. I can't remember his last name, Danny. Very beautiful man inside and out. It's okay to not be okay. And so chatting with this guy, and it's just more and more, especially this year, it's becoming more and more talked about, which I really like. And there's people in the community that are talking about it more, like you and Pamela and Tanya Thorne, just to name three right off the bat. So it's in the minimal experience that I've had this year, it's been exponential, the amount that people are talking about it. But growing up in Okotoks, you didn't really talk about it. People didn't. They would ask how you're doing, but there was never a time where they would sit down and rein in your emotions, if that makes sense.
I would imagine with it as a small town, it's a little different, right? Because when you grew up here, there wasn't more than, 7,000?
Maybe. I wasn't paying too much attention to the population growing up. I was trying to figure out how to navigate junior high and high school. Yeah. But and there was always resources there for you. There were always counselors. There were always people to talk to you, but it was never, there's something wrong with you if you're talking to those guys, and not you should be chatting with these guys nonstop, no matter what. If you're doing good, talking to those people. If you're doing rough, talking to those people. Yeah. Like it just always felt like it was always something on the other side. So leading up to this year, it was, I don't know, a very complicated way to try and think about mental health, but it's getting easier. Okay. A lot easier. And I think that's just for everybody.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I think it's, we definitely seen this shift where in the media, they're talking about it a lot more than they used to, where it was something that was only discussed maybe once a year.
Yeah, because there's like the Bell Let's Talk days and those big campaigns, but you're right. And then the next day, something comes out and they're like, oh, Bell's actually like they did this, and this. And I'm not slandering Bell. But just like it was completely forgotten the very next day. Mm-hmm. And then, off you go to your regular 9 to 5 thinking about the same things you were thinking about a week before.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's good. It's good. Do you, so you mentioned you had like a complicated history.
I have what I would call a complicated history with my mental health. It's well, and one of the reasons that I was, and I don't know if you knew that it was my birthday when you asked the day.
No, I didn't. I threw out a couple different days, and
okay, and so the 10th is perfect because 1 year ago today, I almost made a life-changing decision on myself. And so here I am 1 year later and we're doing good. Yeah. So it's just a complicated relationship that I'm finally getting a grasp on. And it's I'm still very young. So I don't know where I'm going with this tangent. So but it's getting better to rein in emotions and to talk to people about it. Mm-hmm. If that makes, yeah.
So complicated relationship with your own emotions or with yourself?
Oh, yeah. Oh, with myself, with emotions, how I viewed myself, how other people viewed me. Thinky pain is what I like to talk or call it. Is
thinky pain?
Thinky pain. I'm having a lot of thinky pain today. And
interesting. I like that.
And that's the only way I really like to describe that is thinky pain, because it's still pain. Mm-hmm. But it's not real, but it is real.
But you know what? That's so interesting because I talk to patients about this regularly, about how our brain does not know the difference between what we feel, like experience in real time, and what we dream about and what we daydream about. Mm. So whatever you can think of in your head, whether it's reality or not, we still experience it and feel it.
Absolutely.
So if you are thinking in the past about something that you feel you missed out on or you're depressed about or whatever, your brain does not know the difference. And so you are going to experience those feelings in the moment that you experienced in the past.
Yeah.
And it's not real. It's not happening in this moment, but yet that's how powerful our minds are. And then we have to live through it again, and we have to feel that same pain and suffering. Mm. Yeah. And then the same thing for the future, where and this is interesting, like say with anxiety, where you're thinking about something that's going to happen and you think of this bad outcome or this.
And your body is like, oh, that's happening right
now. And so if we're experiencing a real-time anxiety event, our body floods us with adrenaline to tell us to do something.
Emergency.
Emergency. This is a scary situation. You need to solve it. So I'm going to give you a little bit extra energy to get shit done. And that usually in fight or flight is punching someone in the face or running like hell, right? And when it's imagined in our head, that same response still happens. And so our body is flooding with adrenaline. And the response to release that adrenaline, because we're not doing anything about it, we're not running or fighting, is our body has to release it through raising our heart rate, making us sweat, making us shake. All those things that we call a panic attack is our body's response to this adrenaline that we've just thought up in our system. And if we can trust this and understand that we did this and we created this, it can work out of our system in like 20, 25 minutes. But if we don't understand it and we fear it and we try to control it and try to stop it, we create a true adrenaline response. And now there's more adrenaline being flooded into us. And now we get caught in a loop.
Yeah. And that's something I so wish I had learned really early on in my life. Yeah. Really early on. And it's a quick trick that was taught to me when I started seeing, and started taking therapy, which is something I believe everybody should be doing constantly all the time. Like when you're good, you should see it. When you're bad, you should see them. Just being present. And it's amazing how much that can bring things down. Is just listen to music, look outside, find like a worry stone is what I use, and just be present and just let it happen, because it's there, it's happening. So you just got to let it happen.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you're going to understand, like you said, that, this, if I can pull myself into the moment, trust that this is something that will pass, it'll go away. But often, again, we have this need to control everything, and we think we have that ability to make it go away. I think that's one of the weaknesses in some of the approaches to anxiety, is that they talk about control and prevention. And you can't control anxiety, and you can't prevent it.
You never know what'll trigger you. Yeah. The weirdest things will trigger you. Yeah. That flower triggers you. Anything. And you can't live trying to avoid it all the time. And it's just bring it back and knowing that it's kind of happening.
Yeah. So you said you wish you'd learned this earlier on. Did you deal with anxiety as a child?
I'm pretty sure. I've never been diagnosed, or I've never had anybody tell me this is what you have. But panic and anxiety and just like a fear of the unknown, of the future, which is common-esque, but always, and it's just kind of always been there. So just knowing that was normal, yes, that's totally normal, would have been such an amazing thing to know early on.
Yeah, because again, I can imagine, like with me, it was different emotions. With me, it was anger, and so the way everyone approached it with me is, that's bad. Don't feel that. Only dogs get mad. Like, just stop that. And so in my mind, I'm the only one that gets angry, and there's something wrong with me, and it's my fault, and of course I saw so anger is always caused by injustice. Mm-hmm. So when we see something as unfair or unjust, that rising. Anger comes up. And so I was constantly pointing out what I felt was unfair, and something should be done about it. But of course, adults get away with all kinds of shit, and kids, are told what to do all the time. And as a child, that drove me nuts.
You're these people that I can't tell them what to do ever.
Yeah. Like, you're telling me what to do, and then you're going to turn around and do whatever the hell you want, So that always riled me up. But, to me, it was, you feel very alone in your emotion, because there's no one else talking about it, and no one is willing to let you know, or no one understood at that time that, this is normal feeling emotions, and this is okay, because no one was allowed to share them when I was younger. And if you did, there was something wrong with you.
And how old are you?
I think I'm 43, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm 43.
You're 43. Well, just go with calendar, divide by 0. And where? How big was your class growing up?
About 30 kids.
Okay.
Yeah, anywhere from 25 to 30 kids in classrooms.
Huh, okay.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like I had issues at school, but I think majority of my anger was either at church or just at home. I grew up in a house with 7 kids and sometimes foster kids. So
there was a lot going on.
It was
constantly
not an easy place to, be understood and heard, because there's just too many voices.
And here you are being the voice.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get burpy now. Just like
that's okay. I gave him a bubbly. So when you were younger and you're feeling this, do you felt kind of alone because of that? Did you get any support, any understanding back then?
My parents and their love them to death, but I could never feel like I could talk to them about it, because like in your eyes, your parents are invincible. Like they just wouldn't understand that I am feeling like this. So I never went to my parents for this kind of thing. And I had a core friend group that I would talk about it with sometimes, but no, it was myself. And I was, it was always me. I grew up on an acreage outside of town. Mm-hmm. So on weekends, that's where we were. After school, that's where we were. So there was never any like after school socializing, or not a whole lot of it, or weekend socializing. Like you can't just go a couple doors down to hang out with your friends. So you go home afterwards and you're by yourself. On the weekends, you're by yourself, or I'd hang out with my sister, but she's my sister and she's gross, so you don't talk to her, right? But yeah, so there was a lot of growing up on the internet kind of thing. So that was it was pretty, it was pretty in my bubble. Yeah. Unless I went to school and then it was the core friend group, but it was mostly them talking, and then just rinse repeat for 25 years. Wow.
Did you feel it ever held you back?
I don't think so, because I was always I was a theater kid, so I would find a way to express something. Don't know what it was, the energy pent up inside. Yeah. So I was always, a weird kid dressing funny. But that's kind of how I grew up. I always had a way to let it out and express it. Mm-hmm. So it was never getting too pent up.
Yeah, that's interesting. When Jamie was on here, he said that it was interesting being on a show and being able to talk about, his opinion, because for so many years on the radio, you can't really express an opinion.
I don't express opinions.
Yeah. Now, is that part of the practice of being on radio, or is that just?
I think it's also just who I am. I don't really express opinion too often. Mm-hmm. One, because I'm terrified what the other person is going to think, and if it's in disagreement, because I am forever a people pleaser. So it would be, I just keep my opinions pretty low. And I guess that's why I thrive on that, is I'm able to find a middle ground in almost every conversation that I'm in. Mm-hmm. But I keep her tight. But yeah, it's an interesting one, being in the public eye in a way. Yeah. You got to be careful about it, but I've never worried about it, because I've never really expressed opinion one way.
Uh-huh. Okay. That's interesting, because that's what I was wondering. I'm like, is it, when you have, a few thousand or so more people listening to you every morning, does that add to the anxiety, or does that, does it feel like an outlet? But then if you can't express yourself, is it an outlet?
I also don't think about thousands. I only listen to one person listening, ever.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's only ever one person.
Who's the one person?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought you had like one person in mind.
No, just anonymous one person that I'm talking to. Usually, I know my mom's always listening, so there's two people then. I guess. There's always mom listening. But yeah, no, I always talk to one person, so that brings the anxiety down quite a bit. And it's unless it's something that I'm trying to be edgy / funny about, I never get too panicked on air. But
because that says a lot. Like one of the greatest fears people have,
public speaking,
is public speaking over death.
Yeah.
And here you are, someone who, suffered from anxiety in one way or another for most of your life. And here you are on the radio. That's a pretty big deal.
Yeah. And I feel so like, I guess I must be doing it right. Because they keep asking me to do like public events and everything. And I think the largest crowd that I ever spoke to was Light Up Okotoks last year or the year before, whenever they had like that mass amount of people there. And I'm on the stage. And again, I don't think about them. It's just one person that you're talking to. But yeah, public speaking, I could do it forever.
Wow.
It's there's only one fear I have, and that is of the emptiness of the ocean below me. I don't like water.
Yeah. Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So that's about the only fear I have. But
okay. So do you find now public speaking's become something therapeutic, or is it just something you just gotten good at?
I'm just kind of getting good at. I stay present for the most part when I'm speaking to the people, and then afterwards you're like, I wonder what I said. I don't really remember that. It was all a blur. And they keep asking me to do it. So I guess it was all right.
That's good. That's good. That's awesome. And again, sharing our experiences and stories, through this medium.
Yeah.
I really, because I get messages or emails or, patients as they come in, and they're just like, that one spoke to me, or that person, or, that's me. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that suffer with anxiety, and, that's a huge step to be able to do that thing that most people fear, and to be able to express yourself in front of a group. So yeah, that's a pretty big deal. So what was it that you did? What was it just because of the theater that just made that transition so easy? Or was there anything along that path where you're like, I can't do radio. What am I thinking?
Like, what do you mean? Like, was there anything that stopped me?
Yeah. Was there anxiety that you're like, I don't think I can do this? Like, was there something that you did? Is there a technique you do to overcome, or to kind of like flow with that anxiety rather than fighting against it?
I guess it's just channeling it, I suppose. And it wasn't until, and like we were saying, I wish I'd known like what it was that I was feeling for so long. If they had said that's anxiety, but instead it's this feeling that I gotta get it over with and do it, and just turning that into something. And there's good anxiety, like when the curtain's about to go up, and that feels very similar to bad anxieties, where in school you're like, I didn't do all of the projects I was supposed to do, and that presentation is today, and I'm going to be quitting. I'm just going to leave. I'm going to leave right now. And it's very similar, and it's, you just do it. You just do it. There's this silly poem that I heard, not even a poem, just like a little rhyme, where it's like, if you put your mind to it, you can do it. And it just forever in my brain, if it's getting really intense, if you put your mind to it, it'll be over, and you just do it. Yeah. And you just do it for better or for worse. Yeah. And you kind of just be present in the moment and do it. And just not think about before or after.
Yeah. So I know for myself, I did theater once in junior high.
Yeah.
And then I didn't do it through high school because I was always playing a sport.
Oh, okay. It's either one or the other, man.
It's the way they schedule practices or things like that. Like, because I played football, track, and rugby, and so it was like all the time there was a practice, and so it just and I would imagine at that time, because I hadn't done drama for so long, maybe in my head it's just like football's the only thing, or it just wasn't my thing anymore. I don't know. But I didn't do theater in high school. And I wish I had, because I always did enjoy it. And so Crystal talked me into doing Disney Players.
Yeah.
When I was in my 30s. And I can just remember, like you say, like before that curtain comes up and you're like, shit, what's my line again? So I always have a practice of just repeating the beginning of the line.
And then you'll be good.
And trying to, I try to tell myself that anxiety you feel before doing something is excitement, not fear.
It's close. It's a line.
And it is a line. You have to kind of convince yourself what it's going to be and what you choose that feeling to be. Because again, it's all about perception.
Yeah.
Like I say that, feelings our emotions are they're a signal of perceived imbalance, so it's our perception. So when we feel an emotion, it's our brain trying to predict how we're going to react to this situation. And because a lot of people think our brains work as stimulus and response. oh, this happens. Okay.
This is what you do.
This is what I'm going to do. Where it's not this, what actually works is our brain predicts what we should do or how we should feel based off all our previous experience. So in like a millisecond, our brain sees something and then we're like, okay, all right, let's go through all my papers. And what have I done in the past when this has happened? Or when this kind of situation comes up? I get really scared.
So let's get really scared right now.
Yeah. And so I think a lot of people think emotion is this external thing that controls us or that happens to us. And there's nothing we can do. Like a lot of people say, I'm just an angry person or I'm a depressed person. They think they are that emotion rather than understanding that, well, you're feeling that emotion because whether it's modeling from your parents or a bad relationship you're in or, some other experience in your life where your brain's like, oh, when this happens, this is how I feel. And, in the past. So I'm going to reinforce this behavior because I'm predicting how I should respond. And then we get that feeling that isn't necessarily, and when we were kids, they'd always have those little pictures of people's faces.
Yeah. How do you feel
today? Happy face, sad face, all this. And the idea was for a long time they pushed, and they still do push it. The research has proven it wrong, but this idea that these are universal emotions and that everyone feels them the exact same way. But that's not the case. Our emotions are learned behaviors that we're taught from when we're very young. Like when we're born, when a baby's crying, they're not crying because they're sad. They're crying because they're physically uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And
it's a new experience. It's a new feeling.
And they're just like, I don't like this. And when they're smiling or, giggling or whatever, that very young babies, they're not happy. They're just comfortable. And, they kind of respond differently. They'll be, when they laugh, it's not necessarily out of happiness. It's like, oh, that's new. That's interesting. That's funny. And then they start to learn, oh, when that's done, that's how I can respond. And as they get older, then we start to teach them, if you've ever been around babies and a baby's having a bad day, someone's like, ooh, somebody's a grumpy baby, so we're teaching them.
Oh, you're being grumpy.
This is what grumpy is. This is what angry is. This is what happy. Oh, who's a good boy? Who's a happy boy? All these things. And so that's what the new research is showing, is that emotions aren't inherently in us. It's not in our DNA. It's taught and learned over time. And that there's like certain cultures that don't have anger, because they're just not taught to be angry.
It's like, I'm angry because my dad was angry.
Yeah.
And his dad was angry.
Yeah. And so you see that behavior and you become that person. And this, just as we can learn, but that way, that we learn to respond that way, we can unlearn and we can change our perception, or we can choose that, oh, well, that trigger, that's how I usually respond, but I'm going to choose to not respond emotionally to this anymore. And it's not easy, but it's something that once we understand the process, then we can reprogram and rewrite that software in our mind to approach, those emotions in a different way. So it's wild, to get there. But then again, with each emotion is when we get stuck in that emotion, because now we've been programmed, we know these emotions, it's become a lot of our programming. But with each, the main emotions that we've kind of learned as Western society and kind of, adopted, there's a synergistic expression for each. So for anger, it's caused by injustice. To release it, we have to practice self-assertion, which is sticking up for ourselves. Because once we stuck up for ourselves, then our subconscious is like, good, I told you I don't like to be bullied.
Yeah.
And you did something about it. Because we can't control the outcome.
No.
But yeah, so it's, just with what you're talking about, just remind me of that, how, we respond in these ways just because that's how we've always done it, whether or not it's, reality or not.
And you know, something that I learned recently really helps? Nutrition.
Tell me about it.
Yeah, that's something I only recently found about.
Yeah.
I didn't eat a whole lot as a kid, and that probably attributed to that. And I was in therapy one time, and they said, "What did you eat today?" And I said, "Nothing. I had some coffee." She goes, "Logan, you got to eat. You got to eat, man. This is helping." And, you know, it turns out, you know, nutrition plays a very large role in, you know, how your emotions are throughout the day.
Mm-hmm.
Angry is a real thing, it turns out, to an extent.
Angry, yes.
Yeah. And so that's a huge one, and something that I've only recently, you know, started being so mindful of, and like treating above most everything else is, you know, nutrition, making sure that when your body is okay, then you start to be okay.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Because if you're not nourishing that body and having the nutrients it needs, then yeah, your body's going to respond in very funny ways.
Yeah. And oh man, life changer that. Nutrition and exercise. Turns out those are two massive ones that I've only picked up in the last 12 months.
Good for you.
So it's been a world of difference, or a world of difference. So talk and, you know, eat and work out, and then you'll be fine.
So do you do, like, is there a specific diet you're on, or is it just making sure you're eating regularly?
Yeah, regularly. Yeah. Every couple hours. Make sure if you're hungry, it's too late by that point, right? Yeah. So it's, you know, just making sure you're constantly eating, always eating, and good food, not crap food.
Yeah.
Not empty calories, as they say. No, but yeah. So that's a big one that has helped me find a balance, and, you know, seeing other people that pick up their eating, and you're seeing that difference in them as well. And it just, it plays way more of a role than I had thought.
Yeah.
Way more.
It reminds me of, like, there's a lot of new research that's coming out on how what we eat affects the bacteria in our gut. Mm-hmm. And there's certain bacteria in our gut that directly affect our mood. And so that's why, and they've made this link with, like, high glycemic carbohydrates and sugar and things like that. When we consume too much of them, it creates an imbalance of the bacteria in our gut and produce too much of this particular bacteria that is linked to depression.
That's wild.
And so by eating poorly and feeding the wrong bacteria, we actually set up our internal system to feel more depressed. Mm. And the only way to correct that is by eating healthy, changing that diet, reducing those sugars so that, you know, that bacteria balance corrects itself. And in a matter of weeks, your mood could drastically change just by what you're eating. So yeah, it's on so many levels. Your energy level, being hangry, the bacteria.
Is that what the yogurt commercials are all about?
You know, they
give it a good bacteria.
Yeah.
And then they wiggle.
They should totally, you know, use that research. But yeah, that's a funny one. I think it's just because, you know, you're usually in a better mood when you're not constipated.
Yeah. Constantly. And you go to the bathroom, you feel good, and you're like, wow, that was really good. And then you go off.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, it's that's such interesting. What do you do for your fitness?
My fitness? Yeah. So the fitness was something I didn't eat. I didn't work out. A year ago, October, I weighed maybe 118 pounds, like nothing. And then I met a guy named Gary Piper. He runs a gym here. Mm-hmm. And it was one of those meant to be moments where a remote commercial in radio is where you, like, go to a location, you set up, and you do, like, live commercials. Yeah. And so the guy who had originally was scheduled to be the announcer that day canceled. And so I stepped in to do it. And I met this guy named Gary, and changed my life, because I was bad place emotionally, physically. I wasn't eating. I was living alone, coming out of a bad breakup. Like, it was rough. And I was just like, oh, come in, let's start working out. Let's figure it out. And he said, dude, you got to eat. You got to work out. And then that was last year. And so I've been working out 3 times a week with this guy since then. Wow. And mood changes. If you're having a bad day, you just go throw some weight around and you are good to go. You know, and eat afterwards, and you're pretty good. So yeah, I never thought I would be a fitness junkie, but I love it.
Oh, good for you.
I love it so much.
Yeah.
And now, I live with Jamie, and he's a fitness junk as well.
Yeah.
So it's good to train with him, which is really nice. But yeah, 3 times a week, and I just go to beat myself up until there's no gas left, and pick it up the next day.
Ah, that's awesome. Yeah. No, I'm getting back into that too.
Good.
Yeah. I used to, I don't even think most of my patients know, but while I was in school, I was a personal trainer. And
you were?
Yes. And I managed clubs. At one point I had like 15 personal trainers working for me. And so,
I love this side of you, by the way.
Oh, really?
The personal training side.
Yeah. So I did that for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years at least. And I think I even did it for a couple years after I graduated from studying Chinese medicine. And I had actually moved out here, and I was like, okay, I'm done that. I'm going to focus on my practice. And I moved out here during the boom.
Mm.
And so that was 15 some years ago. And just one treatment room to rent in a health clinic back then was $1,000 a month.
Ooh.
And you wouldn't even consider asking that of anyone now, the way things are. And that's 15 years. And, you can just see how overly inflated that was.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, I'm not paying that. So I hadn't found anything. So I'm like, all right, I'll start training, again. And so I actually went to World Health Club and trained with them for about a month. And then I found a place, and I was going to leave. And so I told the fitness manager, and I said, this has been fun, it's a nice place and all, but I found a place to practice, and so I'm going to leave. And I was the top personal trainer that first month.
So it was a loss.
So they weren't happy. And so they actually came to me and they said, we'll pay all the upfront costs, and we'll just take a percentage of your treatments, and you can set up here in the gym. So I did that initially, and I was seeing my patients while I was in the club. And then they made me fitness manager. And so I'm training at 4 a.m., for a few hours. Then I'm seeing patients and managing the club during the day, and then watching all the personal trainers at night, coaching and helping them, with sales and stuff. And so I was doing 15-hour days.
Yeah, sounds like a burnout waiting to happen.
Yeah. And I'd pop away, for a couple hours, here and there to go see my kids and my wife and kind of,
do
try
your
to be
day
a dad.
stuff. Yeah.
But so after all of that, for I think it was 2 years or so of doing those kind of hours, that I was like, I'm so fucking tired of the gyms and working out. So I didn't do it for years. But over the last, this past year hadn't been great, but I'm getting back into it.
Nice.
But it's good. And you are so right that when you're working out, you do feel way better.
You get a boost of whatever chemical it is that you need, and it's good. Shout out Gary Piper. Changed my life. Changed my life, that man.
Well, maybe we'll put some information in the description for sure. Gary for changing your life.
Yeah. Well, I don't think he knows that, but
well, he does now if he listens. So I was thinking about that too. I'm like, 118 pounds. The last time I weighed 118 pounds, I was probably in grade 5.
Yeah. I've always been a little guy, but seeing yourself in the mirror and after looking, at the scale at that, and you're like, I got to change something in my life. It was just, it was low. It was rough. It was needing a change. Yeah. And they say just, do it. Yeah. just change your life. And I was like, man, it's harder than that.
It's I think your story, it's fairly common, where, because again, everyone that knows you probably thought Logan's doing awesome. He's always smiling and laughing and,
That's Radio Logan.
So it's hard to see that sometimes from people, that they're struggling. Did you feel like you could reach out, that you had that support during that time?
Looking back, I absolutely did. I did. And there's so many people in my life that I could have, but you don't recognize that there. Mm-hmm. You find that emotion that makes you feel sad, and then you keep feeding it for some reason because it feels good to feed that. Yeah. Just over and over and over and over and over until you get to a point where you want to make a decision, and it just feeding it is just so easy. And it's until you reach out and you find out there's all these people that I could have reached out to, and there's all these people that care and love you, and it's amazing to think of that after the fact. And it's so bizarre to think of how I refuse to accept that. But it just takes reaching out to one person. You're like, I could talk to anybody.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think too, when you're in that place and you're feeding that emotion, it's like I often talk to patients about, hardware and software, where our body is the hardware. And when it's imbalanced and it doesn't have what it needs, it doesn't matter what you do to rewrite the software, it's not going to work. And, a lot of times when you're struggling or you talk to someone and they're just like, well, just be positive, just smile more, just do this. And, they're trying to help you rewrite your software.
But the hardware's not there.
But the hardware's just not there. It's not ready. And, whether that's acupuncture or diet or exercise or counseling or meditation, whatever it is, we have to get that balance back inside us, give our body what it needs. And then when that hardware is in the place it is, now we can look at rewriting that software and changing our perceptions and like, oh, well, maybe I don't have to respond that way every time I feel anxiety. I can get excited about it, or I can just use that energy to just do it and get it done. Yeah. And I think this is something that more and more people need to hear.
Oh, so many. It just that it's normal and it's complicated, and that you're still you. It's completely different than what you felt or what I felt, but that it's, it's common, but it's uncommon. And what you have is, uncommon, but we can work with it.
Yeah. And I think, like you said, like everyone is different in what they experience
wildly,
and feel, and the path that they need to take to get better. Yeah. So when we, it's that I wish we looked at mental health the way we look at weight loss.
We'll find a plan that works for you.
Yeah, because everyone is talking about that weight loss, and there's tons of books and tons of programs and, all of this, everyone claiming they have the right path. But see, that's the thing with weight loss too. It's you need to find that path that works for you.
Yeah.
And that whatever that is, that's going to motivate you, that's going to help you change and get you kind of working that way. But again, even with weight loss, a lot of it is you've got to do enough to get the hardware working so you can reprogram the software so that you can keep working on the hardware, so you can keep getting healthy and losing weight and all that. It's the same with our mental health. You kind of get that initial balance, and then, you got to keep working on it because it never.
And that's a big one is, you find yourself in, the rut, and then you get out and you're like, I'm good now.
Yeah.
I'm good now. But the hardware is not, it's not right yet.
Yeah.
It's not quite right yet. And you'll always, unfortunately get back into that. And it's just, changing something.
So as you've gone through this process over the years, and you feel like, hey, I'm good, I'm good, and then you get down again, how does that feel? How do you usually respond?
Poorly.
We all do.
You throw myself into something to get distracted until I start feeling better again, and then it happens again, and then A big change was finding someone to talk about it with.
Mm-hmm.
And it's always interesting is whenever I'm chatting with therapists, whoever it was throughout the years, I sit down, I'm like, I'm doing good today.
Yeah.
But I know next week or last week, it was kind of rough, but, and it, I don't know where I was going with that either. Fine. What was your question again? Sorry.
But it's, I'm just saying that when, you think you've got it figured out, you're feeling really good.
Yeah.
And then out of nowhere, something happens.
And it hits again.
And again, it's not a lot of those triggers that throw us back. They're not always conscious. It's hooked up, it's connected subconsciously to a past trauma or, the way we were raised or something that hurt us. And all of a sudden, boom, we're knocked down again.
Mm-hmm.
And, it sounds to me like that's happened a few times, but you always get back up and keep going. What helps motivate you? What gets you going through that when that happens, when you stumble?
I have what I call my pity party for those couple of days.
Uh-huh.
And, depending how deep it goes is how long it takes to get out of it. But you find, and for me, it's music. There's, and it sounds so cliche, but it's painting, or it's music, or it's something to remind myself that I can still do something.
Yeah.
And when you just create, and that's always been a big one to pull me out of it, is creating something and saying like, oh, I did something. There's something that I can hold, and I did this, and it's mine, and it is only mine to, this was just me.
Yeah.
Or if it's music and having something at the end that I can, hit render on and listen to later. And it's something, and that starts the shift of coming back out of it. Right. So and it kind of reminds me of who I am, or, brings me back to something that I enjoy. I'm like, yeah, I do enjoy this, and I can, one step at a time kind of thing, bring myself back. So yeah, you always find cool art afterwards. Like, wow, that's intense.
That is one of the healthiest things I've heard in a while from someone, because you have to give yourself that permission to feel this.
Oh yeah. And if you feel bad, do it.
Yeah. And then
be safe about it, but feel bad.
Yeah. Yeah. Allowing it to kind of work through you, and then be like, okay, party's over. What can I do to work myself out of this? And so for you, it's painting,
creating.
Yeah. And you make music, music too.
Yeah. Music, creating, building something. It's resulted in a lot of amazing things. I was really upset, so I built a longboard one day.
Yeah.
Or I sat down and I created, a couple of songs, or I sat down and I painting is only a recent one, but I've thoroughly enjoyed that. That's remarkable. Or doing like a craft or creating something. So it just making something is what I've always brought me out of whatever it was.
Yeah. See, and that's a universal thing.
Yeah.
You look at a lot of the great artists and so on, it's when they're in those tough places, they use their creativity to help heal them and get them out.
Oh, it's amazing how well it works.
Yeah. That's such great advice, because, we all are creative in different ways. And, it sounds like you've been able to kind of recognize and understand, okay, this is me. I get in these places sometimes, and that's okay. I accept it. I still love myself, and I'm going to allow myself to feel this for a bit. And then I know when it's time to work myself out, and I know these practices help me. That's very mature and very wise.
And it's hard some of those times.
Yeah.
But I've lucky enough to be able to dig myself out every single time.
Yeah. And I see that's a big part of, for us to get kind of a balance on our mental health, is we really have to understand ourselves, not compare ourselves to others.
Still working on that.
Yeah. and be okay with, well, this is my path, and this is what I do for me. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay that this is where I go at times, and This is what I do to heal, and this is where I go. And it's not like everyone else, or I'm not, always happy or whatever, but nobody is.
Surprise.
It's so interesting how, we think, like I just saw something the other day. Which actress was it?
You got it. I believe in you.
She was Catwoman in the Batman.
Halle Berry?
No, the other.
Anne Hathaway?
Anne Hathaway.
Yeah.
So it was Anne Hathaway, and she was just talking about how she's just like always been depressed most of her life and never loved herself, never accepted herself. And like there's like this thing going on the internet about how everyone hates Anne Hathaway.
Because she's finally being open.
Yeah. Well, no. Like before all of this.
Oh.
So she would see this. Everyone hates me. Like there's like memes and like this huge energy behind hating Anne Hathaway. And she's like talking about this and realizing, I didn't like Anne Hathaway. And because she had such a low self-esteem and didn't love herself, she's like, could they pick up on that? Was I working so hard trying to be someone else that I wasn't authentic and people could tell, And so she didn't really worry too much about what others thought, but she's like, I need to love myself. I need to focus on me and being okay for me. And, now she doesn't give a shit if people don't like her, but she recognized that she was not in a good place for herself because she just bought into all that stuff and chose to not love herself and buy into the stuff she felt when she was younger, or what people would say or whatever.
And they'll find out about me.
Yeah. And I think, the remedy for that is to be vulnerable and open and honest, because then everyone's just like, it's just, I've heard all the names, no names can hurt me anymore, or I'm okay with my quirks. So you can't use my quirks against me or my weaknesses against me because I've accepted them and I love them.
Yeah.
And, I do think that's a part of the process of like really good mental health is not giving a shit what people think.
Let me know when you figure that out.
But it's hard, right? Because we either compare ourselves to others
constantly.
And the thing that's really interesting is whether they're Anne Hathaway or someone with $1 billion, we all feel these same things because money and fame don't heal it.
No.
They don't make it go away.
There's still a person on the couch in their underwear at the end of the day. Always. All of us.
Yeah. And they're still struggling and they're still trying to make relationships work. And they're still trying to, figure out who they are and what makes them happy and how to let go of their pain and their suffering. And so I think, again, these discussions help people realize that we're all in the same place, we just all struggle in different ways.
Yeah. And I wish that was, they say like how are you? And good. And you? Not so bad. And that the whole, the dance that everybody does when they first, see someone in the morning. Mm-hmm. And I'm trying to make it more commonplace to, at least for myself, to answer just honestly to that. How are you doing? Today's rough.
Yeah.
And then, you know what? Because then they're conscious of it. And then if they answer honestly, I'm conscious of it. And if they're being rough, then I'll, do something out of my way to pick them up. And then that makes me feel good as well. Yeah. And it's just being open, man.
Well, it's interesting when someone asks you that question, we think there's only two answers.
Good.
I'm good or I'm bad.
And you don't want to say bad.
No, because,
you don't want to put the other person.
You don't want to make them uncomfortable if you don't want to start something because you just want to get out of there or whatever, right? But it just reminds me of, the concept of emotional gradients. Okay. So
you're going to have to expand that.
So, like 50 Shades of Grey.
Yeah.
Or just
very familiar.
Or like 50 Shades.
Yeah.
How there's this, there's a gradient of grays, right? From darker gray to a lighter gray and all that. Now, emotional gradients is this idea that there are it's not just good or bad. I'm feeling good or I'm feeling bad. There are, so many different emotions at different levels in between that. And so if you just say, oh, I'm happy or I'm depressed, like there's a lot of feelings in between there.
Let's get the wheel. Let's narrow that down a little bit.
And if you can be, like I always say to younger kids when I see them in the clinic is, I want you to every day write down what you're feeling, but I want you to describe that emotion as best you can and come up with a word for it. Because it'd be better if you had 6 emotions between happy and sad or happy and depressed.
I like the makeup word because then it's their emotion.
Yeah. And then you can say, I'm feeling, bumpy today, or I'm feeling a little rough, or I'm feeling a little unstable, or whatever, right? Have some word to kind of describe that I'm not completely depressed and I'm not overjoyed. And we think it's one or the other. And, there's the like and the unlike button. And so we think that's how life is.
Yeah, you like it or you don't.
And it's interesting how now they're introducing
all
different
the little
emotions.
Care and, and upset.
Yeah. So it's changing a little bit, but if you could say to someone and they're saying, how are you feeling? And I'm like, I'm feeling this today. And they're like, whoa, what's that? Oh, well, that's the word I use to describe when I'm feeling this way.
Yeah. And
then, oh, okay. So tell me about that. What is it? Is that a good emotion or is that a negative? It's kind of halfway through, And I think if we can help people understand that, it's okay if 80% of the time you're just meh.
Because that is an emotion.
Yeah.
To just be normal. I'm feeling just coasty.
Yeah. I'm feeling, kind of optimistic, kind of okay, but I'm not happy. I'm not happy, but I'm content with how things are today or whatever. And the more we can have more descriptors like that, our conversations will be a little more honest and open, but then we're not shifting between, oh, today was a good day, today was a bad day.
And you're not lying to yourself. And that's yes. a massive one, is especially when, you're in the rut, as they call it, or as I call it as well. And how are you today? I'm good.
Yeah.
And, it's that painted smile. And then you go on your day.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. A challenge that I have always found, and I'm curious on if other media people feel that as well, is when you're not feeling good and then you go on air and you have to be good.
Yeah.
You have to be on.
Yeah.
And it's like lying to yourself, but not lying to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's where, Radio Logan comes in.
Yeah.
But the more emotions that you can have for that, then you're not lying to yourself anymore.
Yeah.
You're not, painting on the clown makeup.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I try to be honest with patients because they always ask me, and not everyone, because I'll always ask them first. And every once in a while, patients will ask me, does anyone ask you how you're feeling? How are you feeling today? And I try to be as honest. I'm like, I'm a little tired, just got lots going on today, but, it's getting better or whatever, right? Like that. One thing I do too is when I ask patients how they're doing, I don't listen to their answer. I listen to their tone. Because their tone tells me
the answer is
way more on how they're feeling. They'll be like, I'm good. And then I'll say, what does that mean? And then they have to tell me the truth, because I called them on it. I can tell that, no, you're not okay. What's going on?
Tell me about it.
And then let's get into it and see what we can do. And again, if we can, especially, maybe our strangers or acquaintances, it's a little harder, but with those we care about, if they give us those pat answers and there's something behind the voice, or there's a little,
you can always tell.
Yeah. It's, a true friend, someone who really cares, would call them on it and say, what does that mean? What are you really feeling?
I am actually feeling pretty bumpy today.
Yeah.
good, but a little optimistic.
Yeah. We always, my boys on their mom's side, the grandparents, it's grumpy and bumpy.
Grumpy and bumpy.
Yeah.
I like the feeling grumpy and bumpy today. Don't talk to grandma.
Yeah.
She's feeling grumpy and bumpy.
Well, this has been a lot of fun.
Yeah. I enjoy this kind of thing. It's therapeutic. You're a lot cheaper than my regular one.
There you go. I'll send you the invoice later. Is there any words of Logan wisdom, or things you're like, I wanted to be able to say this, or this is what I want to share? Is there anything like that?
It's
because you've given us a lot already.
And there's actually, I would like to touch on something, and it's a complete changing gear.
Mm-hmm.
But I only say because it happened to me 2 weeks ago when it was nice. When did it start getting snow? Anyways, it was, I was walking from my car, and it was an emotion I had never experienced before. And it kind of ties into another one of the topics that you've had throughout your podcast here. And I have the pride flag on my car.
Yeah.
I've always been a part of GSAs. I've always been ally. And as soon as I got the sticker, slapped it on there, and a kid said, I see the rainbow flag. Are you gay? Would it matter if I was? He goes, yeah, it's wrong. And the kid was maybe 12, and I was flabbergasted. Emotion I'd never experienced before.
Wow.
Because I had just never seen that in person, and I did not know what to say. And so I just walked away. I didn't know what to do with that. And it was an emotion I had never experienced and never felt. And I know one of the things that you have touched on in your podcast is providing, safe education for people involving, sexuality and gender and like that, like whole wildly complicated world that nobody seems to understand yet.
Yeah.
And it hit funny, and I just wanted to say it here in person, that I feel awful for the kid and the family that had come from.
Yeah. It's so interesting, and
I'd never experienced that because I've never had I didn't grow up gay. I've never had to fight that fight.
Yeah.
And the first time ever, and I didn't know what to do with that emotion.
Huh. It's, because, someone is born gay and they know they're gay, and that's who they are. That's them. But being taught to judge or hate, you're not born that way.
No.
You learn that, and you're taught to hate or judge people based off their sexuality or who they are. So this young guy, who doesn't understand what he's doing is hate, but he's doing it because he was taught that, and because at 12, you don't have this internal thing that tells you this is wrong and judge. When you're a child, you accept anyone and you love them no matter what. And you have no problem that so-and-so has two moms or two dads or whatever. But as we grow, just like we learn our emotions, we learn how to hate. And it's this, to think that, well, I believe this, so I can, harm and hurt and judge the whole world based off my beliefs. And that's okay. No, that's fucking not okay. That is hate. And that's you saying that my beliefs are more important than you as an individual.
And it blew my mind that he approached me with it just because I had the flag on my car. And it blew my mind. So
but I like how you said it though. You're not like, no, but you were like, what does it matter if I am? Because
I was curious at first I thought maybe because I have the flag there because I want there, and I have a pin because I want people to know it's okay to come to me.
Yeah.
And I thought maybe that was the situation. Left turn, not at all. And I wish I had said something to the kid, or like, honestly, at the moment, I just wanted to tackle him. No, give him a big hug. But it was an emotion I had never, and it was interesting. And as soon as that had happened, this was after we had arranged, and I was like, I want to mention that.
Yeah.
Mention that to Jared.
The balls on that little kid to call out someone in this day and age.
In the middle of the street.
Yeah. What is he looking for? Who is he trying to impress? Why does he want to hurt someone?
And he just scooted away.
Yeah. Very interesting. I think, again, we've learned this time again, that those that are most vocal against LGBTQ people are usually part of the community and are denying themselves. Mm-hmm. And so they hate others because they hate themselves. And
it's a battle that they're feeling and a choice that they're feeling.
Yeah. And to, again, whether or not this child is suppressing his sexuality or whatever, the fact is that he, we only hate others when we can't love ourselves. And so he's been taught to hate, and whatever's going on in his world, he doesn't feel good enough about himself. Because if you truly love yourself, you don't want to hurt anyone else.
And what is it?
You accept and love everyone.
In the words of RuPaul, like, how the hell are you going to learn somebody else if you can't love yourself?
Yeah. No, I love it. So, yeah. And again, in a situation like that, there's not the right answer or the best answer.
Just haven't stopped thinking about it. It's wild.
Yeah. Wow. Oh, that poor kid. Because to me, that's, like, again, you may have heard in previous podcasts, like, I was that judgmental little fucker when I was younger. Mm-hmm. And, I can remember as a kid torturing a kid at school because everyone else was doing it too. And again, I was taught that, you're messed up if that's who you are and that you need help. And so you justify what you say and what you do because you think, there's something wrong with them and, maybe shaming them will help them. I don't know. Because that's what religion uses all the time is shame to make people do what they want. But, And as I got older and a little more self-aware, then I'm like, I get bullied, in my church and family. And, I'm not
just going to stand for it.
Yeah. And you kind of learn that, wow, why, like how much suffering they must go through. And so I kind of warmed up more to it over time, but, it wasn't until, I chose to leave the Mormon church that I finally like, wow, that's messed up to think that way and to feel that about people. And then it's interesting because when I finally kind of changed my heart to it and, was in a position where I kind of accepted and I said, I can, I see nothing wrong with what they're doing now. This is who they are. One of my sons came out to me. My best friend came out to me. I started, I wonder, in the process of this, was that something that had to happen? Mm. It probably wasn't. They probably would have came out eventually, but I'm grateful that I was able to let go of that judgment and those feings prior.
To be able to love
them. So I could be there for them and help them through that. Otherwise, I can't imagine, as a child to tell your parents and then for them to say nothing or to judge you, and kick you out or whatever. Mm-hmm. It's the, the way we treat, those people in the community, it's terrible because, majority of the homeless kids are gay, lesbian, and transgendered, and
they just can't find a community.
Yeah. Because their family won't accept them and they don't know where to go or they're threatened by their safety. Like I remember I was on a conference call, like a Zoom thing with families in the community and all the parents in it. I was the only one who had a gay kid. All the rest were transgendered kids. Mm-hmm. So this is like, quite a few of the kids in the community's parents were on this meeting. And one in particular, chatting with her, and she had to, during the pandemic, and again, this is another issue, with mental health that I want to talk to someone about is her husband was taking all the stress out during the lockdown on her physically. And so she was getting beat up by her husband. And so they ended up leaving, and luckily there's things.
Resources. The Rowan House is
we don't have
place.
enough of them, but there's some out there. And so she was able to get some help and to get out of the house. And so she took her son with her. And, once they were away from that, and with school starting up in the fall, he's like, Mom, I'm a girl, and I want to be a girl now. And I want everyone at school to know when I start. And Mom was all for it, ready to support her through it.
But the fear
the fear of her husband finding out, because he's from I think he's from Nigeria. And, of course there's
a huge cultural difference there.
Oh, and, you can either go to prison or you can be beaten to death in the streets, and no one's going to do anything if you're gay there. I don't know if it's necessarily Nigeria, but, I'm trying to remember where it was, but it was, an African country where, because of his beliefs and his very violent behavior,
it could have
been was terrified that if the school can't tell him that his name's changed, that she's got a new name, and that, she's terrified for her child's life. Mm-hmm. And, this is stuff that is just not acceptable. And again, we all need to just those small little instances like that when we stand up and say, so what? What if I am? You don't have to get in a fight with that kid to, do the right thing. But just by saying that, by, saying, so what if I am? There's nothing wrong with that.
Hopefully
he'll
maybe
think about that.
Yeah. Hopefully he does. Yeah. And I will say, on the topic of transgender, in high school, I had a close friend who went from female to male, and nothing physically ever happened, but there was just there was always a judgment there. Uh-huh. And I pray that and just hope that will eventually just go.
Yeah.
It's James. It's just James.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting, again, the wise words of my, he was 10 or 11 years old, my son, when he came out to me, and we were, talking about it one weekend, and he'd been out for a while. He actually told me he was, I think, is it pansexual? No.
You had this conversation on Jamie's.
Yeah, the term where I love whoever. And
polyamorous? No, pansexual, I think it is.
Yeah, I think it's pansexual. And, I just love who I love. And I'm like, that's really cool. That's beautiful. I like it. And he goes, and you know what, Dad? In 20 years, no one's going to care about gender anymore.
I don't think so. I agree with that.
We're going to let go of that concept, and it'll just be you love who you love. And if you're concerned about it, you're going to ask before you take him into your room. But it's, and I really do hope we get there. Could it be within 20 years? It totally could, with how fast things are changing in this world.
I'm going to say a large portion of the people who I graduated are already there. Yeah. I'm going to say a large portion of people are already there. It doesn't matter. What's your pronoun? It doesn't matter who you love. How can I, help you feel comfortable in that? A lot of people are already there. There is a very still large group of people that don't see that.
Yeah.
But hope is on the horizon. It's feeling better.
Yeah. And, accepting these people and loving them for who they are doesn't belittle your faith or what you believe. If you're really a spiritual believing person, you can accept people for who they are and understand that their life and their choices don't impinge upon your beliefs and your practice of your own faith. I don't think not everyone understands it yet, but that's the reality. And hopefully we'll get there. Great. Well, I've kept you long enough on your birthday.
Hey. I had nothing planned. I had brunch with my sister, which was spectacular. Went into work for a bit and they gave me a cake, which was wonderful.
I saw the video.
Then I got to sit down with you, and I was thinking about it because last time I was with you on my birthday, you gave me a flask with a very strange liquor in it, and I couldn't remember what it is. And I ended up drinking it on stage. So that's why the tent just works perfectly for this. Perfectly.
Oh,
but before you hit stop, you would ask before I changed gears into it just changed gears. You had asked if there was any like wisdom or hope or anything that I could say, and just talk to people. I'm decent at getting myself out, and I'm sure people they can find that way to get themselves out of tough situations. But there's always going to be points where it's way more difficult, or at one point, at least in my life, it seemed impossible to get out of that. And it's just talk to just anybody. Yeah. It can be a person on the street. In my case, it was my mom. So just talk. It's okay to not be okay.
Yeah. One thing with just, who we are as human beings and how we've evolved, we never excel on our own.
No.
We need connection. We've always been in tribes. We've always had people supporting us and being there. And, when we're at our lowest, we do need to reach out. There's going to be someone there.
And it's hard. It is hard, but there's more people than you think.
Yeah.
And 5 months down, you'll be, kicking yourself, laughing at yourself, saying, you thought there was nobody.
Yeah.
There's always someone.
Oh.
There's this guy.
Yeah.
This is an awesome platform. Thank you for doing this.
Thank
you for letting me be on this.
Yeah.
Rambling, muttered catawampus, as I call it.
Love that. Well, I'm sure there's going to be quite a few people that are going to listen to this one, and you gave us some awesome tools and stuff to work with, and from your experience, I'm sure it's going to help a lot of people. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Bye.
All right. I really enjoyed my time with Logan Coutts. He's a very, I would describe him as, just the images that come to me are like light and, a little carefree and positive. And I know that's not who he has always been by what he shared with us, but you can hear from his story that he's worked very hard to, allow that part of him who is that positive, carefree, light person, and, embrace more of that and let go of more of his challenges and insecurities and anxieties. And, I think it's really interesting. It's someone who has been in, theater and radio for most of his life now, and still have that anxiety and insecurities. So it just reminds me of how we have this image of people on the surface, and we decide this is who they are, and these are their strengths, and or we see either their strengths or we see their weaknesses, what worldview we use and what is being presented to us. And we make an image of who that person is. And I can see that over time, Logan has worked very hard to allow that kind of core self of who he is be revealed and live that life. And it's hard work. We all have our struggles internally and the struggles we have with those around us, trying to wear a mask to fit into their expectations and who they want us to be. And from that comes this struggle, and that struggle with that internal, dialogue and the external dialogue and the core of who we are. And it's hard to ignore those two things and embrace who we are. It takes practice. It takes hard work. You have to work at kind of melding everything together, our psyche, our physical, and our actions to reinforce and build upon that reality and image and core of who we are. And it takes practice to let go of those things that are trying to tear that down or rewrite that dialogue and that understanding of who we are. This is an ever-changing thing. And I'm so proud of Logan for the work and effort that he's putting into finding his path and his true self and embracing it. And his laughter and his smile and his energy is infectious. And I love him for it. He's a fantastic human being. And I'm grateful for what he gives to this world and the example he has set and shown us at such a young age to overcome so much trial and kind of internal strife to reach the state of peace he's at. And I know from my own experience, and I'm sure he would share that peace may be momentarily a lot of the time, and then we have to keep working at it to get back into that place. I'm sure everyone listening knows a bit of what I'm talking about, that are, that sense of peace and groundedness and, surety that comes from knowing yourself and being yourself. It brings you tremendous peace. And when you listen to that negative internal dialogue or the external worldview and what either others are trying to tell us to be, or what media or religion or politics or the stresses of this world force upon us, it continually works at trying to erode that core self that we have. And so it's a constant practice to build up that armor and protection and skill to maintain and anchor yourself in your true self. And I see just, from that conversation with Logan, that he is in that battle and he's doing really well. And I praise him for that. And I'm grateful for him sharing this experience with us, because it is not easy and we are all working on it. And I hope, again, the purpose of this podcast is to help us all understand that we're not alone and that everyone has a battle that's going on. And it's not so much a battle where we have to, fight or vanquish. It's a battle of thoughts. It is a battle of what we put as priority in our mind and in our actions and our thoughts. And as we continually build upon that with positive reinforcing and strengthening, thoughts and actions and beliefs, we become a more balanced, centered, and stronger individual. And when we listen too much to what others or that external stuff tries to tell us who we are, that's when we struggle and start to lose our footing in our true selves. So thank you, Logan, for sharing this with us and for reminding me of, being strong and carrying out the practices that keep us balanced in our true self and where our state of mind should be. And I appreciate you, sir. So thank you. Again, thank you for listening this week to this podcast. And we're getting some pretty amazing individuals here as we share our own stories and experiences with our mental health. If you want to learn more about myself and my clinic, you can go to healingelements.ca. The links are below. If you want to learn more about my course, The 5 Elements of Letting Go, and how understanding your emotions gets you peace and power over your thoughts and your actions in this world, then you can check the link below. And if you, have concerns or questions about these topics and so on, send us a message. Contact us on Facebook, Instagram. All the links are below. And, we do our best to kind of share these stories. And, someone who we should interview on the podcast, please share them with me. We're working on our list. Again, thank you, everyone. I hope you have a wonderful week and that you carry out those practices that can help you feel centered, strong, and at peace. Thank you so much.